Hello and welcome to another episode of Invalid Entry. My name is James Taylor and here today we're going to do a bit of typesetting or editing of text onto images, in particular doing nice word wrap of text. I'm going to show you the technique I use. There's tons of others out there, there's tons of variants you can use, and there's also quite cool things you can do. This is part of a bit bigger project I'm doing to try and get pictures from my Twitter feed onto the display behind me. So what I'm actually doing is looking at my Twitter feed via the API. I've got an API set up. It downloads the images, turns them into squares or gets the middle square out of them, then puts the tweet over the top of it like you can see on the display here. For today's example, I'm actually using an image from Nick Stone. The last image I saw in my Twitter feed basically was by him. He's called Type Junkie, and he's basically just some quite cool photography of Norfolk and the surrounding areas. Very beautiful pictures, and today I've got a picture here which is going to work. Now, for this example, I've downloaded that picture and put it in the folder. To do the full Twitter thing is a bit bigger project, and I might show that another day, but at the moment this is downloaded, and I've got the tweet that goes with it here as well. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to be using a couple of things from the PIL module today. You can do this. This works by the way in all other languages. I'm using Python, but this works in all other languages as well. It's all pretty much the same. It works in Pygame as well, but it's a little bit different in Pygame, where Pygame actually, I'll go with Pygame at the end, but Pygame you don't create, you actually create another image object and then you blitz that onto your master object. In this you actually create a text object which you then load on. So it's two steps here in Pygame. It's still two steps, but it's two different steps. But the theory is exactly the same. So from PIL, which if you're installing via pip, you should be doing pip install pillow, which is a fork of PIL, but it's in the same namespace. Image font and image draw. What we need to do first of all is open the image. So image equals image.open test1.jpg, and also I'm just going to convert that because I happen to know this is a black and white image, and I also want alpha channel on this as well for a bit later. Now that should, at this point, because I'm in Jupyter, I can just run image and it shows you a very nice picture here of some hedgerows. Pretty cool. What we're actually going to do though is we are going to begin by just drawing some text onto it. Let's keep it very simple. So to do that, what we actually do is create a draw object, and the way we do that is using the factory image draw and take the image. Now what this does is creates a linked object here called draw, which is actually linked. It's not when I don't need to convert it back to an image when I want to render it. The two are accessing the same memory under the hood, and this basically allows us to do things to that. So with that, I can now draw onto it. So I can do, pardon me, I just got to make sure I get my arguments in the right order this time because I got it wrong earlier. Draw.text. Oh, I need to load my font. Sorry, the first thing you should do as well is you should load a font. So somewhere up here, before I actually do font equals image font dot true type, because I want to get a true type font. Now this is a cat.ttf is a font which is good for personal use. I'm using it for personal use, so the license works. You should always get the right license stuff for your things. Once that's loaded in, now when you're loading in, you're giving it a size that you want to use. So there may be a bit of playing around with the sizes. To understand how big a font is in pixels is a very tricky calculation, because font size in points is actually a physical size, where pixels depend on the pitch density of your screen. And you can say, oh, there's these default ones, but actually every screen is different. But yeah, there is a calculation to be done between the two. At the moment, I'm just going to use 28. So now what we do is draw.text to say I want to draw some text. Where do I want it? I want it 50 by 50. That's going to be the top left of the text. It's going to be top left. What's the text going to be? It's going to be my text. And it's the font. It's going to be the font I want to use. And the fill, I'm going to want to put this as white 255, 255, 255. And I want it full alpha. And there needs to be an equal sign there. So when I do that, it's going to write that to the screen. So if I pull the image back now, even though I'm pulling the image back, you can see that I've got this text appearing. Now, what's interesting is this is a fixed width font, but I could be using a non-fixed width font as well. And just to have a quick look what that might look like, I'm just going to check what is in my folder. I've got another font here which is called Fall in Autumn Regular. So let's just do that as well. font B. It's called Fall in Autumn Regular TTF. So I can now use font underscore B. Let me just copy this completely. I'm going to move this down a bit, so I can do it 150 by 150, font underscore B, run that, have a look at the image, and you can see here that I've got another bit of text underneath. Now if I'm going to use this text, I probably want to make it a lot bigger, so let's just make that 42 for sake of argument. Now I have to reload that in. It doesn't. I can't just say make that font big or anything. I have to reload that back in. If I run this again without running this cell, so I'm not opening the image again, I basically will overwrite the two, which is fine for the moment. I'm just drawing things in. I may even want it to be bigger, so 72. Ooh. Let's go for 72. And this is a little bit of playing around just to make sure I can get the image sizes right. It's a very big image actually. And the web browser makes it look small. That's a good size for that second font. So I think we'll be using this second font to make it look a bit handwriting, but I'm still going to want to word wrap it nicely. And I also want to word wrap it evenly, so 150 in, I'm going to want to word wrap it 150 at this as well. I also want to split the bottom, but we'll deal with that in a second. So just let's get rid of that one and run it from the top, here, here, and here. Text appearing on a picture. Now what you've got to be careful of is, especially when you're putting stuff on colour, is that sometimes you lose it. So what I like to do is I like to put it on twice. Now I put it on first using black and maybe an alpha of 200, something like that. So it's still quite an alpha, but there is a little bit coming through. I also like to move it across and down. So I'm going to put it at 152, 153 and 153, and then run that. And what you'll get is effectively you'll get a black outline, and that just makes it pop so much better. And it doesn't take long to render the same text twice. So you'll see me render the black first out a little bit, out and down, and then I'll render the white over the top of it, and it just makes that text stand out massively. Tiny little thing like that, absolutely fantastic in what we're doing. Now, what we want to do now is actually work out how big the text is. So one of the things you can do, instead of doing these draw text, these are not what we want to do, is you can actually ask how big a bit of text is going to be before you actually call it. And you can do that with the draw function. So you can do draw dot text size, text underscore size, text, I'm just checking the reference, but I don't want to do it wrong. Text size, all one word, text size, the text I want to do, so my text, and the font that you want to use. And of course, passing in different fonts will give you different values. So this tells me it's going to be 4,648 pixels long, which is way too big. So what we want to do is, there's several options now. We could just start chopping words off until we get to the end. So you could start saying, well, find the last space and chop that off, put that in a separate string, and then start building up a bigger string. What I like to do is I actually like to render each box, each actual word independently until I get to the end of the string. So, which sounds basically I'm working out where each word goes, and it also means I can start playing around with the word sizes. I can do things like sentiment analysis and make positive words stand bigger, or I can do things like find the verbs, or like poems where actually make certain words bigger, and start playing around with layout on the screen. But the fundamental is we're going to want to split the text up. Now again, if you're working in other languages, things like Chinese or languages like that, you might have to change how you're splitting the sentence up more drastically, and also word wrapping will be different in those languages because of the changes in how punctuation works. But fundamentally what we're going to do is we're just going to do phrases equals my text dot split, and I'm going to split on the space. So that is going to be the next line of code we actually run. And then phrases will now be an array of words. Pretty simple, okay? What I do is make an arrays, phrase sizes. Either I make an object and I put the phrase and the phrase size in the same place. These magic numbers here I'm going to sort out in a moment. Spacing is how much space I want between words, and that's maybe a bit low, so maybe that's 7. Basically, because the size of the image I'm working with and so on. Well, in my version, I've standardized the size of the image. I know how big the size is, I know how big the font is. It all makes sense. So for phrase in phrases, p dot equals draw dot text size phrase font equals font. Total plus equals p naught. Phrase sizes. Now this actually gives me back a tuple, by the way. So I actually come back with something like 4, 34, 20 to 20, where that's the width and that's the height. I only care about the width at this point. So I actually don't care about the total. I do care about the total. So that gives me the total size. That gives me the width, and actually what I'm also going to do here is plus spacing as well, and that's fine. I don't care about adding the spacing there, but I do care about adding the spacing to the total. So I run that, and it's going to phrase size. It's going to give me an array like this, which basically each one of these relates to one of the objects of the previous one. If I was doing this professionally, I'd make an object and actually have the word and the size of that word in there as well, and I'd loop over the data. At the moment, I've got 2 arrays which happen to be exactly the same size, and there's a direct correlation of 1-to-1 between the 2. It just is what it is. That is the case. Now I want to know how many lines this is. Okay, so lines, the number of lines, is that math.c. Do I import in math? I don't think I have. So up the top here, do need to import, very important, math. Math.ceil, because I want an integer, right? The total divided by, total divided by the width of the image, which is that. Now, it's called IMG, that's why. Now, size 0 is the width. I also want to subtract 300 from that. Now, I want to subtract 300 because I've got a board of 150 on either side. Okay, so if I just did that as a figure, it will come out with 2.8. So math.ceil of that basically will round that up to 3. I could also have, I may have been able to get away with a different figure, like math / total that plus 1, or 1 plus that. But if this had actually come out with an exact number, it would have given me, there's an edge case there where if it happened to be an exact multiple, but the fluke of that being, then it would have given me 1 extra line. So this is the correct way of doing it. I think this is the correct way of doing it. Anyway, what we're now in to be able to is actually to start positioning it. So current line equals 0, left pos equals 10. It was 150 because I want to go for 150. Okay, for index in range. Now, because I've got 2 arrays at the same time, I have to use an index rather than saying 4x and I'm going to use an index. So that's going to basically move me through the indexes. Downside of this image, by the way, is if any one phrase is longer than the line, so if there's a massive URL name, which I think there is on this particular message, that may be cropped, but it's sufficient for most purposes. The phrase is equal to the phrase's index, and also the phrase size equal to the. Did that wrong? I should put singular. Size equal to phrase size index. So I now know which word it is I'm trying to draw. I need to know where I'm drawing it. So I've got my current left position, but I need to know the height. The height is equal to, because the indexing on images are always from the top left, the height of images to image dot size 1 minus the current line, or the lines minus the current line, because of course when I'm on line 1 I want it to be 1 more, so it's a bit of indexing there, times the line height. And I know what you're going to say here is that I haven't defined line height yet. Line height actually is, you could say, we can actually calculate the line height here. The line height equals 0. Line height equals max P1 line height P1 plus spacing. There we go. We've now got a line height. It's got an underscore in it, but it's line height. That will now give me a height. I've got my current left. So what we're going to do is draw.text, and we're going to current left pos comma line height, and we're going to add 7 onto both. I think it was, or was it 2? I can't remember what I did up here. I did 3. 3 looked nice, so we're going to do 3. Add 3 onto both, and it's going to be the phrase, the word I want to spell, the font equals font, the fill equals 0, 0, 0, 200, and then I'm going to do the same again without this. I'm going to fill it with white, so that's going to give me, I'm going to do a solid white as well, 255. Now what we have to remember to do now is move the current line position along, plus equals the size, which is great, that's going to move along, plus the spacing. Now that's going to make one long line because I haven't gone down. So the question is there enough space the rest of the line to fit the next word? And that's the question we're going to ask before we reset. So if index plus 1 is less than length of phrases. Okay, so we need to do this first. Basically saying, but only check if we're not the last word. So if you are the last word, don't try checking, you'll get an index out of bound range. Okay, so if the current left pos plus the phrase size index plus 1 is greater than the image size 0 minus 150, because it's just that right hand side I care about. It's not 300, it's the right hand side. I could put a margin as a variable and it would have been a lot more obvious what this meant. And if that's true, if it is bigger, it's gone off the right hand side, current line plus equals 1 and current left pos equals 250. It was 150. Now this is actually quite interesting because this is actually the difference between return, which is or rather enter, which is this one, which is line feed, move the thing down by 1, and return, which is return the carriage to the side thing. We've just implemented /n/r there. Actually, let's do the way around, and now it's actually /r/n for all you Unix geeks. And that's it. And that did it. I actually ran that there, and it did it. So if I now show image, what we should have working for the first time is that at the bottom. Worked perfectly, used the wrong font. That was my mistake. So that was the first font, and if I reset the image, because I have to go back to the top to reset the image, reload the image, this here has to be that, this here should be font B, like that, and what we've got to make sure is that whatever font you use here is the same font you use here. Font B is nice handwritten font, and then actually show the image again, and there you go. Nicely word wrapped, nicely bordered. This is left aligned. I haven't tried to centre line. If you want to centre line, you'd have to work out the size of your entire thing and sort of line it properly. There are some weirdnesses here, like the full stop going on. You want to increase space after full stop slightly. You could do better justification, but that's fundamentally how you align text justified on a view. That's it. It's a nice short video for this week, 20 minutes. If you like this, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you want anything particular, message me. I'm on Twitter under Jmons. If you want to see the Pygame version, let me know and I'll knock you off a Pygame. Pygame is a little bit different because in Pygame what you do is you actually create the text. It creates you a text image or memory array, which you then blit in. So you don't draw it on, you blit it in. So you create basically a text thing and then blit it, rather than you working out the size and then drawing it straight onto the memory object, which is what we're doing here. Do the 2-colour thing. Looks fantastic. You could probably work out a primary and secondary colour based on looking at the image and working out some average values. But it's super simple, super easy. Someone did mention to me they want to use the word. There's a text utils function. The text utils actually tells you, basically does nice word wrapping for you and justify text, but it only works if your font is a standard width. And you can see here this font isn't the standard width, so not every letter is the same size. The other thing you can do here, by the way, is you could do something cool where the font you used is random, so you could use a different font. You can make like kidnapper messages and things where you have like 5 fonts, pick a random font. You just have to make sure that you use the same font that you use in the width calculation that you do in the final calculation. So you could like rotate them or something like that. I'd be tempted to make an object rather than having 2 arrays. Make an object, a little dictionary, nothing more than that, which had like the message and the font object, a reference to the font object, and the size in one. So you can just loop over that once rather than having to keep these 2 arrays in alignment. But that's the basicness of it. So yeah, have some fun, make some images, share with me what you do. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. That's it for this week. Thank you very much.